I want to share something really cool with you today, Hunter. I recently had the opportunity in my private mentorship group to attend a special guest masterclass from a guy who's scaled affiliate marketing on TikTok to about $40,000 a month in revenue within the first month of doing this. And at the moment, it's at 10K profit. And so that's obviously because you're affiliating and not your products, etc., etc. And the interesting part is that it's completely anonymous. So although it's on TikTok and it's all video, and it's actually a lot of it's done through lives, it's completely anonymous. There's no face involved. And so I think that's pretty wild, to be honest, because in my head, to do well on something like Reels, TikTok, all this sort of thing, I just sort of assumed that you need to have your face involved because that's kind of what you see. Like you see all these like influencers with a face, etc., etc. With shorts. I don't actually use TikTok, but you see like a few come over to Instagram Reels when I do pop over there. And so the reason why I think this is interesting and why it works is a few reasons. TikTok's kind of wild compared to most social media platforms because it's actually a little bit like YouTube, this in a way, in that like your follower count doesn't really matter. If you have a post that is a lot of people are liking and watching through to the end, or they like, that will just start getting blown up to more and more people. So it's a lot easier for just like a random reel to go viral, even if you don't have a lot of followers on your account in the first place. Whereas like on something like Twitter, like that's possible every now and then, but it's a lot harder, and it won't go like super mega viral if like you've only got like a
Right.
thousand followers. YouTube, I don't know. I think it's kind of similar, but you also have like some piece of content with only like 1,000 subs or less will just like blow up and do really well. And so what they're basically doing is a lot of times just buying an account which is like 5,000 followers or something initially, just to give you that follower base, and then basically just and the way they often get that is literally just by posting like memes and like meme videos basically to get the initial traffic, and then basically just talking about like the classic is just supplements, basically talking about supplements and just paying people to like sort of film themselves like touching the product or things like that. And then what they're doing is lives, and the lives, and obviously like the products they buy them themselves before, make sure it works. Like obviously you can use this for scamming if you want, but ideally not. And a lot of the supplement obviously industry, a lot of it is pretty scamming, but you do have some stuff that works. And so they will then like pre-record a live, pay like a woman from Fiverr basically, to do a voiceover, so it's a female voice, and then basically adjust the script and add in questions. So you may be wondering XYZ, or so and so has asked this, as if you're literally looking at the live comments as you're going, but it's all completely pre-recorded. The reason why this is so
It's
powerful,
pre-recorded during this live.
yeah, the live is pre-recorded. And
That's funny.
so, like, this whole voiceover is pre-recorded. So the reason why this is so powerful, I'm pretty sure this is anyway. Almost 100%, yeah, because obviously you're not going to get someone from Fiverr just to sit there on the line and do it live. And so yeah, they're not actually answering the actual questions in the chat. And they're saying what's cool about it is you have live feedback to the copy. So the copy in the script that they're selling these supplements, you can see the reactions of people. You can see when people leave. You can see when people drop a comment. You can see when people stay in. And so you can basically monitor you, but you can basically have like live data on your actual copy, which points hits hard, which points don't, and adjust it. And because TikTok shops at the moment, and they have been for like the last year, whatever. They will just give, if you set up a product in TikTok shops, they will give you discount codes and pay for the discount yourself. So they'll be like, oh, hey, like, here's a 20% discount. You get the full price, but they give you 20% discount just to incentivize people using TikTok shops and TikTok shops itself. So there's actually a girl from in my county in Wales, and she just blew up like a hair product basically to like millions in revenue, as a first business purely through TikTok. And this is a big part of her business as well, is that TikTok shops will literally give you discounts to run. So there's basically always some urgency. You can be like 10% discount ending today. And yeah, by doing this, literally scaled 40K revenue within the space of a month. And he's actually got like a group where he's also teaching this to people. I don't know how long this lasts, And apparently, the other reason why
Right.
it kind of works is a lot of these accounts get flagged and taken down for basically if you're saying something that isn't quite true or you're not allowed to say. Like TikTok is apparently really, really strict with that, especially if you use TikTok Shop. So a lot of accounts just get closed down. And so I think that's why it's kind of a wild west, because a lot of accounts just get shut down, while a lot of smaller accounts can just randomly get blown up if a certain video does really well. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting opportunity. I was wondering whether or not to pursue it. I don't think I will right now because it's just not a focus for me now. But I think it's probably something that's going to get you're going to hear of getting more and more popular over like the next 6 months as like another little biz op that more and more people start doing. Especially the fact that you can do it anonymously and it doesn't actually have to be you on the camera. And I think the other thing that it also highlighted, or that he highlighted as well, is like the fact that TikTok is not actually a social network. Like the reason why it was so revolutionary is because it is now a content network, right? No one goes to really socialize on TikTok. You don't really go talk to your friends. You don't meet new people. You're not going to meet someone traveling and be like, "Oh, what's your TikTok?" and connect with them. And instead it's just like a content marketplace where the algo just sorts
Mhm.
this marketplace and gives it to you, and you can sort of choose who you want to follow. Once again, a little bit like YouTube, whereas like X, Facebook, and Instagram, much more social. It's usually your followers who you see. You can message people. Like you don't really see, especially on Instagram, if it's just personal, you don't really see anyone's content. Or you don't see that much content outside of like all your friends who are posting their pictures of them on holiday, and then like you'll get like some memes or whatever if you also follow those kind of pages. So yeah, thought that was really interesting. I don't know if you what you kind of think about it in general, but also like how you're thinking about social media as well, and where you want to be focusing on to basically get more traffic for your business.
I kind of have like two parts to that. Like I mean, I think TikTok is a huge opportunity, especially in the business sense, just because of the algorithm. Like how you don't need to be a big account with tons of followers to go incredibly viral. Um, with the catch to that is I it seems more like a, and I don't want to say get rich quick scheme because like they're making money and it's
I mean,
not like
but
it's
it basically
super
is.
easy. But I always think about, especially business, in a holistic view of like lifestyle and everything about that. So I think about it like you say, they keep getting taken down because what they're doing is a little, I don't know if I would use the word morally ambiguous, but maybe to TikTok it is, and that's why they're getting taken down. I just don't know how much like I would personally want to keep trying to get back on the wheel every time you fall off, because I mean it's good money. There's a lot of overhead, but you're essentially not doing anything, right? Like you're creating the TikToks, or you probably pay somebody to do that at this point. You're paying somebody to read the script on the lives. Um, like it's very interesting, but it's also like I've never been a huge fan of affiliate marketing, only in the sense that like I don't control the means of production and distribution, and that it's the same reason that like my business right now does Notion services or specializes in Notion services as operations. But now I've moved into like doing AI systems and automation because I never want to be dependent on another business to produce my income. I mean, in a way, we all are if you like really go back to it, but immediately, like I don't want to directly be responsible for another business to produce my income. So like let's say I'm running an affiliate shop and I get like 60K a month off this great product that we found that we're affiliating. And then product goes down like because of the business, like whatever happens, you kind of have to start over in a sense. I mean, you're not really starting over because you're gaining all the skills and knowledge you're going to apply to the next one, which is going to make it easier. But in a sense, it's like it feels like a lot of work to keep moving forward. I mean, they're making money, so it's more of a personal preference thing at that point, I think.
I just cut out. I don't know if that's me. Hello. Okay, you're back. Um,
I just was wrapping up with like it's more of a personal preference about how you want to make your money. What type of life do you want to live? You know, and if you, especially if you don't want to show your face, like being anon, that's incredible, honestly. Because I tried that when I first started. I tried, I had a finance newsletter like you did, and I was anon. Tried to make TikToks, tried to make Instagram, tried to make tweets, never worked for me. Never. So to hear that they're having some success with it is absolutely awesome. I wish them nothing but the best and hope they can figure it out, as things change as it will. But it's amazing the opportunity there is with TikTok just in general. No matter what business you have, there is some sort of opportunity. And that is definitely something to take advantage of right now before things change because inevitably things will change.
yeah, I agree with you on the how you obviously want to make money. I mean, I think one of the lessons is like you start to realize there are so many ways you could be making money, and it's more a matter of what one are you going to be best at, and what one are you going to actually
Hmm.
enjoy the most more than anything, and also what one is going to actually get you to where you want to go the most. So maybe it doesn't pay you that much, maybe it's not such a huge opportunity, but maybe you learn a lot for something that you want to be able to do later on. I think with affiliating,
Right.
I think it's a great way to learn to sell because you
Yes, for
don't need
sure.
to worry about delivering. Like it's hard to make your own offers. It's
Hmm.
hard to like build a production line for something. Like all of those things are really, really difficult and take a lot of time. And so if you just try to set that up, like that could it basically take you a long time and there's a lot of ways that it can go wrong. Whereas if you just want to basically get good at the marketing side initially, so I want to learn to generate traffic, I want to learn to sell different types of offers, you're going to learn that through doing that. And so even like things like the script that you do in live, like all of that's just writing copy and learning to sell. And if you can learn that, then you can go on to sell your own offers and not be even more profitable. Like affiliating is obviously not the most powerful way because you're sharing the revenue. If you
Right.
created a TikTok to sell your own brand, that's obviously in the end going to make you more money if the brand is selling a good product. But yeah, I think in general, it's a brilliant way to just get good at selling. I mean, even like
For
I
sure.
remember my first affiliate sale, like through my email list. I was like, I actually, yeah. So at this, it hit like just under 1,000. I think I said it on one of the last pods without me like even. I literally wrote an email in 20 minutes. I checked my affiliate account today, and I had another course that I just written like an email about, and I just got like $800, actually quid actually, so like almost a grand of commissions that had just been actually just coming in without me even realizing it because he'd opened it up later on after closing it and had a few more sales. And obviously, I don't have to deliver at all on that. It's like I literally needed to do nothing apart from just mention it, basically. So I think
Hmm.
it'd be really powerful. I think it's a good way to initially learn to make money. But yeah, it's definitely not the be all end all, to be honest. The other interesting thing that he sort of mentioned, he was like, for him, like there's a massive cold email phase happening at the moment. Part of it like Cold Email Wizard and like the Ascension community and the Internet Money group. I think are getting basically upselling people into the cold email group as well. And he was like, look, cold email obviously works, but ultimately with the rise of content and more people being known for a certain thing, if someone wants a copywriter or something like this, or even someone for any service, who are you necessarily going to go for? Like the person who's just cold emailing you all the time, or someone who's just like who they've heard of or they know of through content in some way. I don't think that's strictly true. I think people will still go for the cold email or something like that. But I think what's going to become more important is the personalized cold email. It's something that actually shows a portfolio, for example, someone's written a sample. Because I was tempted to try cold email and then I decided to try personalized instead like mass cold email. And then I switched to just like personalized. The first sample I wrote, 5 minutes later, I got a reply and booked a call that evening. Um, literally 5 minutes later. And so what I basically did is, although I did it slightly differently. I went on to Upwork and I just looked for projects, and I've never really used
Oh,
Upwork, so I have
I've heard of this strategy.
yeah, I've
Never
noticed
tried
that
it, but
I found
interesting.
someone, I could find their site. The way you often find either they'll tell you it or you can find the name of their site through scrolling through their previous jobs, and someone will mention the name or the company, and then you can find them on LinkedIn. And then
Yeah.
basically, yeah, I just wrote a little sample email because he wanted a new sales page. I wrote like a little sample of like some alternate headlines. I made it look pretty on like a mirror board, and then basically just cold emailed him them. So I don't have to pay the fees on Upwork. I can just do it on just straight
Right.
by email. Literally 5 minutes later, I was like, "Oh mate, this is awesome. Thanks for that. Do you want to hop on a call?" So yeah, I think it's cool. Don't really know where I'm going with this, to be honest. I mean, I guess a segue from this is I know at the moment you're doing some outreach to get leads for your agency. And so,
Mm.
how are you going about that? And do you want to incorporate more content into that lead generation?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, content as a whole, for sure. Depending on what platform I want to do it on, I'm not sure. I think that ultimately there's more leverage in posting content on something like YouTube than there is on X or TikTok per se, just because of the type of audiences, the type of content, everything that has to do with that, especially given my space. It might not be the same for you because writing, you're showcasing that on X, whereas I can write about my systems, but it's much more effective to show it through video on a platform like YouTube. And just given the way that the algorithm works there differently and the evergreen style that you can do. But as far as like outreach, yeah, I've been having my VA do outreach for me, and I I do it pretty simply, and so far it's been working. I guess I don't have much to compare it to because I haven't done really many structured outreach strategies or campaigns like this. I don't typically, I never like doing outreach myself. Like, so the clients that I've worked with and, the ones that I'm still working with have been almost entirely inbound in a sense, like either through me writing an email and them replying, being like, oh, this is interesting, let's hop on a call, which you could consider some outreach, but they're on my email list, they're already warmed up. And I like that way because I only want to work with people who want to work with me. Like I don't want to try and sell somebody on something that they don't think they need. Because I think that overall if you try and do that, then they're going to have a bad experience. Like if they already don't want to work with you and you're trying to convince them of this, and unless you're solving some major pain point that is going to absolutely change their life, which you do try and do if it's like a really ideal customer profile that you can 100% provide value to, then maybe it's worth it to try and change their mind. But in a sense, I've just had much better experiences working with clients who wanted to work with me. So the way I do that when I go through cold outreach is I start with warm outreach, like anybody who follows me first, because they're aware of me, they're aware of who I am and what I do if they're already following me. I'll go through those people and follow up with them. And a lot of the times, I'd hate hard sales pitches. I've been cornered on calls before by people that are like, so what's stopping you from buying this right now, today? I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't like this. It makes me uncomfortable. I'm not going to do this to somebody else. I feel like I'm being forced into a sale, and I do not like that. So the way I do it is most of the time, maybe I'll change this up too, depending on like results I get and whatnot. But most of the time I send a very straightforward, clear, concise-ish message. Like, hey, I'm this person. I do this. This is what I provide for you and your type of business. If that's something that's interesting to you, let me know and we can have a chat. If not, no worries.
Mm,
And just receiving DMs myself, if I see something that's a sales message, I'll read it, but most of the time within the first 3 or 4 lines I can tell I'm not gonna do this. But the ones who, and since it's so specific of an offer and I know exactly who I am targeting and the services that I provide and the results that I get, the people that are interested in that normally reply with the first message. They're like, yeah, this is interesting, let's get on a call. So I try and keep it really simple like that. I may expand it in the future with like a couple intro messages first to maybe build some rapport. But in my sense, I'm often more pissed off if people do that to me. If they try and build rapport and then they just sell me, because then I know it was fake. You know, I try and be very clear with my intentions right up front. I don't want anybody to, just from experiences that I've had. I don't know about you if you do outreach at all. I like to try and keep it as like personally email list content for inbound organic marketing. Yeah, I never really liked outreach. What are your experiences with that?
Yeah, pretty similar to be honest. Like I literally never did it. I only started trying it recently, like a few months back, and now I'm actually not doing it again. Um, and I'll cover why in a second. But I just want to quickly say, so first off think like your approach is kind of the best approach because what I think everyone falls into is kind of looking for tactics, and this is something that our mentor
Mm-hmm.
is trying to drive into us all the time because we're like, oh, like what works better, like a book a call versus like reply to the email, and then you send over the sales page, or etc. etc. And
Mm-hmm.
he's literally always like, you're asking about tactics, and what matters more is to just think about it holistically. Like you're not dealing with like some weird market you're trying to steal money from. You're dealing with another human. And if you just think about that and you just look at
Right.
it in a holistic human way, it's like, oh, well, how would I want to approach this? How would I want to have this presented to me
Mm-hmm.
if I was the customer? And as
Yeah.
the tactic is often like the part which is less important, but we think is more important. Like we're like, I remember like there was one launch we were doing which didn't go very well, and I was like, man, I think it's the back button, the color's wrong. I was like, that color obviously it makes absolutely no difference. Like, okay, maybe it makes a tiny conversion on a large scale if you're testing a bunch of things, but the most important thing is the things like
Right.
what's the angle you're going for, what is the actual offer? Like, what's
Right.
the big promise you're presenting? How clearly you're presenting it? Those are going to be
Mm-hmm.
magnitudes more important than all the tactics. So, I think your general approach to that, yeah, I really, really rate that. With outreach, yeah, I started testing it a little bit. I tested some cold email. I didn't really actually do any cold DMs to be honest, because I basically was only doing it not for coaching because I can get that through the list. I wanted it just for more done for you copywriting clients because I wanted to gain more copywriting and marketing experience. So I just did some cold emails, had some success, but I stopped it recently just because I've just ended up getting other work. And this kind of comes into the other thing I want to talk about, like the power of your actual network, like the people you meet is you don't really realize it, but yeah, the people you meet that you don't necessarily ask something for at any point will just randomly come in and be like, hey, I've got this going on. If you're also known well for what you do or being hardworking or just like generally, I guess, not being a dick. So recently had
Right.
not a mentor, like I guess like an unofficial mentor reach out because we've been chatting a little bit. And this guy's an absolute beast. He owns some of the biggest YouTube channels. Um, yeah, in like sort of a coaching niche, doing like millions a year with each one. The current one he's just partnered with, he's trying to scale to about 750,000 a month over the next 3 months, basically. And yeah, he basically just reached out and he was like, "Hey, I'm looking to do this project. It'd be really cool to have like a copywriter or something on board if you're interested." And obviously, not done the outreach. Literally, just again a
Mm-hmm.
month back, another not someone, not a mentor, but just someone I'd had a call with, who'd done like a big tech exit. I think two exits actually, and partnered up, also got this other project going. I was like, hey, are you interested in this? So because of that, I've actually just not been doing any outreach because I've got enough work without. And once again, like Virgil, who was once my business advisor, reached out and he's like, hey, can you review the sales page? And I was like, okay, this is not that great. Do you want me to do it? And he was like, yeah, that would actually be awesome. So doing the work for him. So through this, I've actually just ended up not needing to do any outreach purely just by reaching into your network. And a practice that I started recently, recommended to me by an email marketer called Nick Yates. And it's essentially like
I've
have
heard of
a
him.
Google Sheets, a list, which is just everyone you know that could be at some point valuable to reach out to. And so, say you're doing something different, say you're launching something, say you want to test an idea, say you're looking for another client for XYZ agency or whatever, message every single one of these, not to be like, hey, do you want this straight away? Just kickstart a convo and then shift it in, be like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, what are you doing? Like, is there anything you're working on? This is what I'm doing. Is this interesting to you? And when you do that, you'd be surprised what happens. Even like the SaaS that I'm working with now, that happened through that as well. I remember a convo we'd had ages ago and I was like,
Mm.
hey, are you doing anything with email or anything at the moment? Because I've got a little bit of spare time. I would love to help you out. It's like, you know what? This is amazing timing. This is exactly what we're looking for. Had a call, and I'm loving working with them. And it's really, really great work. So yeah, I think holistic, realizing the value of your warm network, and just it also ties into I would never have been asked those things if we go back, say, 7 months ago. Because I
Hmm.
wasn't known for maybe or even like I guess more a year ago. It's more realistic. I wasn't really known for having any particular skills, and so I think like in general, the focus of just like constantly trying to just get better at what you do, whilst also slowly building that warm network, just eventually leads to more and more opportunities. And then it's a matter of like, what do you want to say yes to? What do you want to say no to? How much can you actually put on your plate without literally exploding?
Yeah. And I think when, if there are people listening that are like, a few steps behind us per se, and they're like, trying to build whatever it is they're trying to build and get clients or start their business, it probably sounds like a lot of luck or just that we're so lucky that we get people inbound to like come and want to work with us. Um, but I don't think a lot more needs to be said about like the work that it takes to get to that point, because it's not like we're setting up our accounts and putting in our bio what we do and immediately we have people messaging us like, oh, this is what we want to do. There's a lot of work that goes into the content in order to build a brand that is worthy of having people come and reach out to you to do your services. On the second part, I think that's the best way to do sales, in my opinion, and how I feel like instinctually. I'm sure there's going to be like the client ascension group or like the bro hustle guys are going to be like, that's not good, man. You should have like a
I mean,
script and you should
it depends
have
what your
like,
goals are, isn't it? Like if you need to
this is
scale
true.
something up fast,
Hmm.
content slow, because they're all ultimately just tools, and it's knowing what tools to
Hmm.
use and why. Like if you want to slowly fell a tree over a month, then like just probably cheaper just get an axe or a saw and slowly start doing it. If you need like an entire
Right.
forest over the next few months, then you probably want to get in some like heavy machinery and absolutely go mental, run
True.
a load of paid ads, affiliate, all this sort of thing. So I think it all just depends on goals
Hmm.
and in what time frame you need things to get done and how you want to be known as well, and just I guess just how you want to conduct things.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, when I'm on a new call with a lead and, they're interested about what I do, I'm never like, I normally present it like, what do you do? Like, I want to know everything about your business and you and like how you operate. And then here's what I do. And if that meshes well and we think we could fit together well, then let's have that conversation. But if not, I don't see any point in trying to push somebody because I think that does a lot to your reputation and you only get one name. You're never
Yeah.
going to get another.
Okay.
So
Cool.
just being a good human being.
Yeah. Final thing I just wanted to say on this note before we go on to the next thing. I am
Okay.
slowly getting convinced that literally like 90 plus freelancers and agencies are absolutely terrible. Like literally super like have no just don't know what they're doing basically, because I would say now like especially compared to like most of the copy and stuff out there. I'll say like I'm like in to what I'm like say I compared to like the average Twitter copywriter, I would say like average or like above average. When I look at how good like people who are actually really really good are and have been doing this for a while and have actually like practiced their craft, like I'm a complete beginner. Literally, I'm like wow, like
Mm-hmm.
there is so much way to go, and the only way that I know that is because I'm around people who are that good, or I like pay people, you've got mentors or whatever, and you get their feedback, etc., and you see their work. And I think most people don't even necessarily bother to do this at all. And like I speak to so many people who've worked with an agency or done something like this and just been absolutely burned. They paid like 3 months to try and run some ads. The agency just absolutely did nothing. Like even like when I look at a lot of like sales
Mm-hmm.
pages and things, I'm like, this is not even that good. Like I think because and I think the reason why is the barrier to entry is so low, right? Like literally anyone can just come in and try and
Right.
get an odd job here or there, and a lot of times the people who are paying someone don't actually know what good or bad is. Like a lot of people are getting someone to do their paid ads for them because they've got no idea how to set it up, what to do, how to write copy or anything like that. So they're willing just to pay anyone. And so I think you literally have this sea of people who are like inspired by Amin Ghazi and all this sort of thing, trying to get in on it. And obviously not all just wanting to make money. and not really wanting to actually get good. And I think this is partly also a generational thing right now, because my mum knew like a very famous artist who works. He's kind of teaching, I think, at St Martin's, which is like a famous art college, art university in London. And he was saying, I don't know if they're friends or she knows. Basically, he's connecting somewhere, and he was basically saying what people used to ask him when they came up to him was like, "Man, like how do I get as good as you?" Basically, and she said what he said that people have started asking him now, like the younger generation, is like, "Oh, how do I get as famous as you? Like, how do I make as much
Mm.
money as you?" Basically, rather than just wanting
Hmm.
to actually get good at their craft. So yeah, I'm convinced that honestly, if you actually just focus on getting good and you actually care about delivering and getting, just continuing to improve, like you will just catapult yourself over everyone else, because everyone else is literally getting burned by average. Yeah, run over.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could see that shift like everywhere in every industry, just given the nature of social media and how people want things so immediately, and they don't even necessarily they don't want to be world class at something. And if you don't want to be world class at something, then I don't think you're going to get the accolades that you so desire. I mean, like you said it perfectly. Like they want to know, how can I get famous and rich like you, not how can you I be good like you. And the reason he's famous and rich is because he's good. Like I think they're climbing the wrong mountain, which brings me into a question I wanted to ask you that I heard Chris Williamson mention on his podcast. A question that he asks himself that I think he is really important, especially for people who are just starting and they're like, what do I do? What skill do I learn? What industry do I pursue? And the question is, do you think that you can tell you're climbing the wrong mountain without having climbed it in the first place?
Can you just say the question again? You briefly cut out.
Yeah. Yeah. So like let's say you're trying to learn a new skill or build a side hustle. Can you is there a way of knowing that you're climbing the wrong mountain without having climbed the mountain in the first place?
Ooh, in some cases, probably yes, but also in many cases, no.
Interesting that you say that. In what cases do you feel like you can?
In what cases do you feel like you can? Well, one,
Mm-hmm.
there's a few variables. There's obviously what you think, and then there's obviously like in hindsight what's actually better. And obviously
Right.
in hindsight, there's never any really way to tell that. But I think in terms of what you think they are now, I think some people will know, but because of like a fear of either failure or what other people will think of them and all these sort of things, they don't execute on that mountain, which they kind of want to do, right? So for example, like anything that isn't just like going straight in, like getting a 9 to 5, doing the whole like 4 years, 3 years in uni, all this sort of thing, even like dropping out after doing a year or two, especially after two, all of those things get progressively harder to do because of the expectations on you to complete them or to do them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the way in which you sort of know if like you're not climbing the mountain is if you actually just inside know but you're sort of ignoring it. Like even with me when I was at uni, like so many people told me, because I did 2 years, I got a first in it, which is like the top marks basically, and then I like didn't go back to finish it, and I would only have one more year to do it, and they were like, "Oh my god, like you're crazy! Like why don't you go back? Like you put in all that time." And I was like, "I know that this is that's not the mountain I want to be climbing." Like I think people also underestimate how much you can get done in a year. Like they were like, "What are you even doing?" And I was like, "I'm trying to do so many things in my time. Like
Interesting.
I can't tell you how much my life has changed over the last year. And if I go to uni and I just sacrifice that entire year to do something I don't want, I can't even tell you how much like the opportunity cost that is compared to doing something that actually excites me." So yeah, I mean, you can talk about other things like values or like does it build, but I think that's sort of a lot of the times just ties into how you just generally feel inside. I think a lot of the times you also never know whether you're climbing the right mountain because as a human, especially a young human without any hindsight, you have so little knowledge. Like you don't know whether you like something. You don't know whether you're going to be good at something. You don't know whether the niche is going to change. Like you could be
Hmm.
working on something which you find interesting, and it just might never blow up or become popular in your time. So it's just completely pointless. Like, or you don't get anywhere, and you can never actually achieve anything. You could be working and tinkering on something. Like even say take something like Bitcoin. Someone might have been obsessed with Bitcoin back in like 2014, and were like, "Man, I love this thing. I think it's amazing. I want to tinker on it. I want to put my life into this. I want to talk about it. This is all I want to focus my time on." You might do that and it might not have happened. It might have not have gone anywhere. Something might have gone wrong. It might not have gained in popularity. There might have been an error. Satoshi might still be alive, whatever, come back, close down, anything really. Like whatever. And it could all just go to shit. Or as it's done over the last like 10 years, it could have just absolutely blown up and you become like a millionaire, to which point everyone would be like, yeah, you obviously climbed the mountain. So I think a lot of the time you just don't know. And I think there's a big risk where people will want the certainty of knowing which mountain to climb, and so they
Hmm.
won't actually start walking. And so I met someone recently. He was like, "Yeah, I'm just trying to figure things out. Like I'm not." I think he was like 27, 28, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm just like trying to figure things out." And I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, and he was working just like a job that he didn't like, a standard 9 to 5, and just sort of doing it remotely, which wasn't really like furthering his skills. And in my head, I was like, yeah, but like, surely the best way to figure things out is actually just start doing other stuff, like throw shit up there, like start walking up the mountain, see if it's hard to get up, or whether you can sort of get up the first little
Hmm.
footholds. And you'll know pretty quickly from doing that then which mountains. So I think a lot of times it's better actually not really to worry about it too much and instead worry about what is going to make you easier. What is going to make it easier for you to actually climb the mountain, which is why I decided
Right.
to go into like learning how to copyright and write and all this sort of thing. Because I was like, no matter what other business mountains say I decide to climb later on, I will find it easier to do that because I have these skills that I've gained. So I think that's often, instead of worrying about the mountain, just worry about your ability to actually walk up and just picking a mountain and starting to climb, to be honest.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I feel the same way. I think that maybe the more mountains that you climb, the quicker you'll be able to tell this isn't the mountain for you. But I don't think if you don't step up on it and start climbing, you're going to be able to tell. And I
So
think that people who are climbing their first mountain, they need to be okay with being uncomfortable in two senses. One, whatever you're picking up, the skill you're trying to learn, unless you're a prodigy and naturally gifted, you're probably not going to be very good at it. And as humans, we have a predisposition to not like things we're not very good at because we don't get that dopamine response from being good at it. The more you do it, the more you learn, the better you get at it, the more you will like to do it. Um, I don't think people are necessarily willing to be uncomfortable with failing in a sense. And that's another reason I don't like to use that word because it's not failing. You're just learning. You're getting this evidence that, like, I did this, I didn't like that, but now I have this skill. You're just being okay with being uncomfortable. Like, you're probably going to fail. You're not going to be very good at it at first, but knowing that that's okay. Like, you don't, nobody is really the only person expecting you to be good at it at first and make this business succeed is you. Most people put that pressure on themselves, and rightfully so. Life is busy. You get older, you have more responsibilities, higher bills to pay. The stakes raise in a sense. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, then you almost have to be okay with living in some sort of uncertainty because it is uncertain. There's a lot of waves. There are good days and there are bad. There are days you think you're up and you're never going to be down again, and there's days you're down and you think you'll never be up again. Just learning how to be okay with that uncertainty and know that it's not going to last forever. I think that's just really important when you're starting a business, when you're learning a new skill, when you're getting clients, and just life in general, a relationship, like anything. It's okay to be uncomfortable and make mistakes. And I think a lot of that has to do with the school system. Like, when you fail, it's bad. Like, you are looked down upon by your peers. The teacher most likely looks down upon you if you fail. Like, we're so used to, we've internalized this idea that failure is something you need to stay away from at all costs. Whereas if I think you embrace that, embrace your failures, like, and don't think of them as failures, just learning along the way, you're going to get there so much faster. At least I think from what I've done. I don't know how you feel about it, but just
I
being
think I
okay with
think
being
uh,
uncomfortable.
I think I was looking at the screen. I was like, who's that? I thought it was David Goggins for a second there. But no, I agree with all of that. I think they're brilliant points, to be honest. I've got a question which I thought of. Coming on to the point of mountains,
Okay.
what is your plan to, and I know like you don't really have like monetary goals or whatever and that sort of thing, but I know you also want to make a significant amount of money, but just running like a six-figure business. And so what is your goal to get to? Let's start off with 1 million net worth and then go on to 10 million, just as a thought experiment. And what is your plan to actually do that? Because I want to just know, like, briefly, like, what are you doing even in your business now, and what is your ideal to scale? Because I know at the moment you can outsource jobs which aren't really the notion building thing for now, but at some point, like, but you still have to deliver on a lot of it. And I'm kind of in a similar situation. Like, there's some things I can outsource, but when it was with the coaching in the community, and even with like the marketing work and the copy work I'm doing for other people, a lot of that stuff at the moment, that still is me doing it, which I'm happy about for now. But I'm curious, what is going to get you to 1 million, then to 10 million net worth? And what does that actually look like? And if you don't know, then
Mm.
obviously I think this is an interesting thought experiment. Because the other thing is like, if you had to make a million in the next 6 months, how would you actually do it? Or even in the next 3 months? So yeah, we'll go from there.
Okay, I think those two questions for me are very different
They
because if I
are,
wanted to
but
make a million within the next 3 months, I would do things differently versus trying to scale from 1 to 10. Because I think about, sustainability, I think about longevity.
all right, go for
Right.
both and then
And
start
obviously
with
never
whichever one you want.
having.
Start with whichever one
Okay.
you want, and we'll go on to the next
So
one.
from scaling to like 1 to 10 million, I like to take a lot of inspiration from Brett from Design Joy. If you heard of that agency.
Yeah.
So if you aren't familiar with Brett from Design Joy, awesome guy. He gives away all of his knowledge about. Essentially has a productized design agency. It's almost just him, and I think he recently hired another designer to help him out. But the way it works is it's a subscription based agency. People sign up, they request him um, designs that they need, and he gives them back to them. And it just kind of works like that as a as needed basis. And I like to set up my agency similarly, where like it works on like a ticketing system where this is high priority right now. We want to fix this, then that's what I'll work on. And then when something else pops up, I'll do that. But what he noticed is as he did this and as he scaled over time, the audience that he had grew. And this is something I take from a Hermosi speech that he gave about content. He says having a frame of reference to speak from is so important. Nobody would care about, I've said this before, but nobody would care about Hermosi and his advice if he didn't make $100 million first. Speaking from a place of reference where people know that they can trust what you say is huge. So I think getting the agency to a point where people find it so interesting and they want to learn more. I'm not saying that I'm not quite at that point yet, but it doesn't really compare, you know. And then the second part to that is
How
that he has this course. What's
how are
that?
you how would you make that happen? How are you going to make that happen?
What part? Scaling the agency,
Yeah, so the first part you just mentioned there, in terms of getting it to
right?
the point where just people, like loads of people are wanting to come to you or interested in what you're doing.
I think that now having worked with plenty of agencies and just knowing the ins and outs of operations, like what they need, what they want, um, more productizing my offer, probably optimizing it a little bit in terms of delivery and fulfillment, and then how I want to do like the long term work for them because that's ultimately what is the most difficult. It's hard to train somebody to do custom work that I would inherently do. So I'm working on doing things like that, creating SOPs about like how I think about things, how I would build things for certain use cases in a general principle format, because everything is always going to be different when it comes to different businesses. But besides the point, productizing I think is really important. If you solve a problem and you do it once, learn how to infinitely repeat that. Create an infinitely repeatable case study that you can deliver quickly, that provides real value, and that people feel like they're getting value from. So, number one, productizing and optimizing my services more to be able to handle more clients at a lower overhead and just give them more value. Number two, and this goes into more of a passive income realm, which as a person I want to switch into full time, I guess you could say, later on. Like for my agency, inevitably the goal is to build a wealth generating machine that I don't need to be actively a part of. Not saying that I don't want to be a part of it and involved, because I like building systems, but something that doesn't need you there per se. And the second part is, so Brett, the Design Joy agency guy, he has this course called Productize Yourself. And I think that one of the tweets I saw, don't quote me on it, but it's very similar, is that his agency made like $800,000 in the last year, and his course made like 1.2 million. And those are rough numbers. It might be different time frames, but the point is that the course was doing more than the agency, and he has no work on that. But because that he was able to do something um, in a way that everybody wants to do, he was able to sell that, and people want to buy it. I think what's going to take me from 1 to 10 million is going to be creating a brand that I'm able to have influence like that, where people want to buy something that I can back up with 100% proof that, like, look, this is what I did. Here's how you can do it too. But I think right now a lot of people try and sell courses for things that they're honestly not very good at. They think they are because they have a little bit of success, but to be the top 1%, you need to be so good that you can do that for everybody. And without massive success and results behind you, you're not going to get a product course doing $1.2 million a year with the 10,000 followers. It's just probably not going to happen. So that's how I think about it. And going from 1 to 10 million will be going from services to products, because that's much more scalable.
Yo, sorry, yeah, you cut out. Um, okay, so TLDR, classic, productizing the surface more, building your brand, releasing a course.
Essentially, I'm going to do things differently, but as a principle, I think that works really well. As long as you have a frame of reference where people will buy your course, not just have a course to have one. I don't like that. Something that you are world class at. That, like when I see the AI content reactor by Rob Lennon, like I know that he's world class in AI. So without a second thought in my head, I'm going to buy that. And he's made substantial money from that, as he should, because he's world class at it. So yeah, I think to go from the switch of 1 to 10 million, it's going to be building a team, of course, productizing everything, and then trying to go from services to products and using content as a medium to do that.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Um, yeah, I
How
mean,
are
it's
you going to do
interesting.
it? 1 to 10, 10 to 100?
I'll get that. I'll reply to yours in a sec, and then go on to that. So I reckon. So one thing I'm interested in. So obviously you're tied to Notion, which like obviously has its pros and its cons.
Loosely, but
Uh,
yes.
but yeah, like at the moment, the agency, I guess, and the course is sort of tied to one platform. So do you think about platform risk there in any sort of way? And also in terms of like, I guess hitting a larger market by maybe like finding a way to get outside of that is one thought. The other thing, in terms of him not doing as much from his agency, I mean, obviously, if you sell a course, that you're selling shovels, right? It's like the people who are making the most money, or a lot of people making the most money in the agency space, are the ones selling courses on how to start your agency, because you are net having a bigger productivity impact Because if you're just one agency, you're serving a client at a time, or how many clients you can do at a time. If you teach 100 people to start an agency and 10 of them start a successful agency, you're responsible for those 10. So you will often get paid more because you're selling with shovels. But I think the other thing in terms of his case is you said he's literally just basically a solopreneur. Like he hasn't productized his service at all, basically, because he's still a solopreneur. Like if he had a team under him or multiple other designers doing the work, he could probably take on way more clients and then use kind of the traffic that he could probably just do a lot more work and then also be making, I guess, more money from that as well, rather than just having to be him. Because obviously, like, the beauty with a course is you can be sort of a solopreneur, whatever, and then still have like just be able to serve as many customers as you can because you don't really need to manage a team to actually deliver to those customers. So one thought, I mean, I guess like the thing in terms of if you want to get to 10 million selling a course, like one thing that's going to be important is one, I guess, like having a lot of back end office, but two, actually building like a massive brand, like a huge brand essentially. And so I guess that's like the biggest needle mover because obviously if you have like, I don't know, like 10,000 followers or whatever on YouTube, whatever, you're probably going to make a decent amount of money with it, selling a course and then maybe a coaching program and then one-to-one coaching as well on the back end. So you're making the most of every sub. But realistically, if that's gonna do, so 10 million, whatever, like that has to be a huge YouTube channel. Like you want like hundreds of thousands of subs, ideally. So I guess the thought then, yeah, is ultimately also then as you're building out the agency, I guess even like building out a team or building out a system to start seriously growing on YouTube or something like that would probably be important. Um, yeah, it's a lot of work.
I mean, yeah, it is a lot of work. And I think as you say that, it kind of like clarifies what I'm trying to say in my mind is it's more about building a lifestyle that other people think is cool and then teaching them how to build that lifestyle for themselves ultimately. Because when it comes to business, there's so many different ways you can do things in so many different industries. There's so many different pricing models. There's so many different products. There's so many different services. But ultimately, doing things how in a life that you want to live, that you're excited to wake up every day and live, like building that life for yourself and teaching people how to do that. So, at that way, it's less dependent on like Notion as a platform because, yes, I do think about that. I never want to be dependent on another business for my income. Like if Notion were to go down tomorrow, it would be a hit for sure. But I know that I could take the skills that I've learned about operations, system building, and just apply it to a different tool, apply it to something else. So in that sense, like I'm not worried about it. But yeah, one thing I wanted to bring up with you is this. I fell into the trap. I was scrolling Instagram Reels the other night, just honestly, I've started to get great ideas for the emails and threads and tweets from Instagram Reels or like short form because they have such a way of capturing your attention with interesting topics and interesting things because the barrier to get somebody to like stay there and watch is much less because they can swipe so fast. So I think it's been a great place for ideas and I'm probably going to write something about this, but it's the red car theory. Have you ever heard of it?
I'm not sure. I might have a few explain it, but not just from you saying it there.
Okay, so at any point today, did you leave your house, go for a walk, travel to A to B?
Yeah, I'm not currently in my house. I'm actually in my mate's sister's bedroom,
Okay,
but I have left the
so,
house.
but you traveled today some distance of time.
Yeah,
Okay, so how many red cars did you see?
I'm not aware that I saw any.
Right, but if I were to tell you that I'd give you $50 for every red car that you see, what would you do then?
I'll probably see one.
You'd look though, right?
Yeah.
You would be looking for red cars.
I would have a radar for it. Yeah.
Right. And this it's very similar to the frequency illusion by I believe his name is Badar Meinhof, like this phenomenon. But it essentially means is like luck works in that way. Like if you are not aware of opportunity around you, you're going to let them all drive right by you, all these red cars. But if you are in the mindset of you're trying to build something for yourself, you're going to see opportunities differently. They're going to come because you're going to notice them. The same
Mm.
opportunity that flew by you, you're going to notice now because you're looking for it. And I think that's really important when people think about starting a business and you need to get lucky. Like, it doesn't work like that. The more you can notice opportunities as they come, and your awareness is what will move you across to the next step. It's almost like Alex Ramosi saying volume negates luck. Like, yes, the more you do something, the more opportunities you're going to be able to see because you're looking for it. And I think that's really interesting in when you're just starting, because I've done this for sure. Like, if you're not in a place ready to see those opportunities, you're not going to see them. Yeah, just keeping your eyes open.
I like
And
that.
like, if I like, how many red cars would you see? A lot.
Yeah, that's a good
If you just
metaphor.
applied that same level of thinking, you would have a lot more opportunities.
Yeah. I think luck obviously does play a huge part in everything we do in business. Like even the fact that you decided to focus on Notion, for example, and then
For
obviously
sure.
Notion's become really, really popular. And even like when we started writing
Mm-hmm.
on Twitter. So I think, yeah, luck plays a huge part. But no, I agree with that reframe because obviously ultimately you have to also make your luck, or you need to be there to take advantage of that luck, or even to follow through with the luck as well. And I think, yeah, it's kind of funny, like, I think once you start doing a few things or you break the limiting belief that things aren't possible, you almost see too many things that you want to do. Because I'm like, realistically, like you could do that, like
Mm-hmm.
even like the classic, like starting a brick and mortar, like starting a gym, for example. Like, I'd be sick just to own a gym. Like biometric scans get in, like, and I was
Right.
there was a massive shortage of one in my hometown, and then eventually like one got built and it's doing really really well. It's like, oh fuck, could have done that. I think there's like you then start seeing hundreds of these, and then obviously like it's almost like being aware that there's like baseball balls like being fired your way, and then it's a matter of like turning around, like always being aware of it, and then like picking the ones which are like actually think that you can hit quite well or whatever, and then striking those. So yeah, I love that. I mean, it's a good reframe as well because everyone's always like, oh, like how are you even doing that? That's so lucky. I mean, I guess if we get like luck even plays a bigger part if you think about how you're brought up, who you're born to, etc. But in general, with the things that you've got now and the mindset, and if you're listening to something like this, then yeah, it's a cool reframe. Do you have anything else? Oh, I got to answer your question on my plans of 10 million.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I would say, yeah, what I'm doing now, this is the plan. Like, I would say, rough plan is my current phase right now is just getting as good as I can at copywriting and marketing. Like, that is almost like 100% of my focus is purely just getting as good as I can. Like, I'm not even really of the mind frame to be outsourcing that many things right now because although that would be better, like I want to spend the next or the rest of the year anyway, literally trying to get as good as I can. So working with this guy who has the YouTube channels, I really want to do that just because he is amazing at systemizing everything. He runs about 5 businesses, and they're all doing it incredibly well. And he's just like he's basically he's kind of strategy for all of them. He has teams for everything. And so I want to learn, and he's an amazing marketer and copywriter as well. So I want to learn as much as I can from him. Same with SaaS, just want to keep testing, like seeing how much and how fast that can grow by putting effort into it, then just getting any other jobs here and there. Yeah, basically done for you jobs. And so the rest of the year, that's pretty much my main focus. But I don't think that's something that scales my income beyond. If that's more just to build up the tools to then help me later down the line. After that, then there's a few different options. At some point, I want to go hard on content again, and that would probably be YouTube. And I think that would play a part. And bar that, I actually don't know. I think a lot of it will be keep on developing my skills now and keep on looking for other opportunities to find the thing where I'm like, shit, I really, really want to go hard on this because I think this is like the thing, or this matches like my skills or whatever skills I'm doing it with, and then the opportunity. So I'd say the thing that's actually going to get to 10 million, I don't really know to be honest, because obviously that's a huge number and a massive amount of work. And yes, you could just scale an agency, up to that, but that's also like extremely hard. Like I'm talking to a friend who I think they're just about to hit the 3 million a year mark, and they've got like 40 employees or 30 something employees, and he's like, already it's like there's a lot of there's so many things in managing, because you're like there's always a few people who are a bit laggards, they don't perform as well, and so he's going to come in and flush them out and try and get new people in and all this sort of stuff. So extremely hard. So I don't know whether that happens with an agency, say if it's just a simple copywriting agency, or email marketing or something like that, or something that I can also see is probably quite likely is wanting to start a new opportunity with the skills I've learned and then sell that offer basically. So yeah, TLD I don't know, but what I'm going to
Right.
do, what I'm doing to ensure of it is, I guess, just continuing to be open to opportunities, um, and just getting as good as I can, basically what I'm doing, and stacking as much experience so that when I find that mountain and I want to run up it, I know what it is basically. And also, I guess, just stacking different little, just planting seeds basically, starting little revenue streams. Like obviously still got the community, but I'm just not growing that now. So at some point, probably restart a bit of coaching. So there's always a little bit of coaching going on that's bringing in some income, having the done for you, and then also having some space to go on and attack any other opportunity. I don't know if you see any holes in that.
And
If
I
you
think
do,
it's
tell me.
okay to not. No, I mean, I see one little one, but I don't think it's necessarily a whole because it pertains to like your entire skill set. But I mean, I think it's okay to not know right now. What I think it's more important to just have that goal because you're not going to hit goals you don't aim for, just period. Um, I also think that focusing on one thing at one time is the fastest way to grow that thing. But
Yeah.
in a sense that it's all about your copywriting and marks, like those skills, and it is the same thing in essence. Um,
What was the hole?
Something that it was more in a sense of like doing done for you copy and coaching and this other thing. Whereas I think that if you focused on one of those things, you would find the best way to do it and you'd be able to scale that more quickly and easily than trying to scale all the other things at the same time. But if your goal is to just use that as a medium of increasing your skill set and then using that skill set to attack some other opportunity later, then it's not really a hole per se.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I also disagree with it because, yeah, right now I'm not doing any coaching, and that's more something like apart from just the odd call with the community, and it's purely, as I said, yeah, kind of single focusing on the done for you purely for those reasons. I was like, if I just single focus on this for the next like year, I will get so much further than like trying to do this, trying to do a bit of content, etc., etc. But I disagree
Mm-hmm.
with it on that. If you have multiple things like that, like they all sort of they can also feed into each other. Like once you've got it to a
They need
point
to be
where, like,
complementary.
yeah, once you can get it to the
Yeah.
point where like, okay, done for you, I've done a fair bit of the work here. I can maybe systemize them, or I can even hire someone. I know where my bit is in this, or what I want to focus on, or want to be known for. Um, and you can sort of systemize it. Maybe you turn it into an agency or whatever. Like if you want to hire someone for that, coaching someone to do something similar is one of the easiest ways to hire. Like Dylan just got a ghostwriting writer through our community, because obviously we've already taught them the basic skills. Like Nick Yates, his first writer for his now email agency just came from his community, because you just get someone who's interested in it, you train them in your way. They've paid you to be trained basically, and then you're like, hey, I can just give you a job. And I think the guys at Ascension and their cold email course literally doing the exact same thing. They're like, here's the course, and it's basically just a big SOP on how to do it that you go through and you pay for, and obviously make some
Yeah.
money. And then like if you're good, you can also just work for our agency if it's too hard just to run your own. And I also think
Mm-hmm.
that you almost want to like not take on more than you can, but I think when you're young, you want to take advantage of the fact that you're never going to have more energy than you do right now. Like literally never. Like you're never gonna have that much drive. It will get harder and harder. And given that we know so little because we're so young and dumb or whatever, I think the other important thing is to try and do literally as many things as you can. Like push yourself a little bit to the limit. Obviously, still have your balance. Obviously, you don't want to burn out. But I think it's a massive missed opportunity to not really be at all close to that threshold, to not be taking on a load of work, to not be saying this. Like I almost think
Yeah.
you want to say is yes to as many opportunities as you can without like completely burning out. And this is kind of the advice that I've also been given to a little bit by people way ahead, when I have hopped on calls on them. Because there was a period where I was like, am I trying to do too much? Like, obviously, we're just doing this pod to practice with this. Obviously, got the community, obviously doing done for you. And he was like, no, like, this is exactly what you should be doing. Like, say yes to everything, do as much as you can. And obviously, if there's one thing that you think you should focus on, obviously get rid of everything. Focus 100% on that. But until you know what that real thing is, like, just
Hmm.
try and get as much skills and experience as you possibly can so that you have better knowledge to take decisions and to build whatever you want to build further down the line.
Hmm. I Yeah, at least at first, I think it's the most important to say yes to everything, to get your feet wet, to get that experience. I think eventually you're going to know what you want to do more of, and that's when it's okay to say no to things that,
Oh,
aren't
yeah,
of interest to you in that sense. But at first, like, you're not even going to know. You got to go out there, get your
100%.
feet wet. And like with this pod, I mean, I don't think people realize that when you're in a semi position of leverage, doing more things can get easier for you. Like for you and me, we take notes throughout the week about things that we think is interesting. We show up to record the pod. And then for the most part, we have a lot of things systemized and automated already. Like we have somebody who edits it, schedules it, creates the thumbnails, gets clips for us. So in a way, when you move up the ladder of leverage through life and through business, and the more capital you have to deploy for leverage, things can get easier to do. The more things that you do, at least I've seen that directly with this pod. I thought it was going to be a lot more work than it is in a sense, but for what we're doing, like um, I'm starting to really reap the benefits of being in a position of leverage. And I think that's important for people to know that you don't need millions of dollars to do things efficiently or to get leverage. That's why we started content at first, because we didn't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest in a business. We did it the way we could. And yeah, long story short, to say that do the things that you want to do, because ultimately you're going to die one day and you don't want to think about, you're going to be more unhappy with the things that you wanted to do and didn't than the things that you messed up doing in the pursuit of something you wanted to do.
Man, you've definitely been watching David Goggins before we hopped on this. This
It's Chris Williamson. I love that guy.
is why.
If he ever
This is
watches this,
why.
I love that, like, deep thinking. I think it's important.
Purpose life guru has arrived. I agree with those. Interesting. So with
On
the
that note,
yeah, well, we should probably on that note wrap it up. I also just one thought with the pod. So obviously, I think capital deploy is huge because obviously, if we were even further along, like we could have hired, say, like a proper like podcast production guy. So I met a guy in. This probably doesn't even necessarily
right.
go into the. This doesn't probably doesn't even need to go in the podcast. We've kind of wrapped it. But yeah, I met a guy who's the producer of the Multipolarity podcast, and it's basically a
Mm-hmm.
geopolitics podcast. And it's looking like at the dividing world, and he's done work for like BBC Radio 4 and this sort of thing, which is like a big radio station in the UK, basically. And he's done a bunch of like high end podcasts, and I listened to it, and I was like, "Fuck, this is so good." And so I was talking to him, and I was like, what does producing a podcast even entail? And he was like, well, one, like he writes the whole intros basically, like the little skits, like what's going to make it funny, whatever. He will like take some topics himself, but also the topics that he presents, and he would be like, okay, like over the last few weeks, we've been talking a lot about this. I think it'd be good to mix it up and pick like these three projects, basically. And then he'll basically like cut
Mm-hmm.
and edit it all up, so it's like only the highlights. Things are pretty fast. There's like transitions going like as you're shifting through, and so there's like three big themes, and they wrap it up, and it's like really clean music. And I was like, wow. I listened to it, and I was like, this just sounds like a finished product. So I think ideally with something like that, that's almost what we should do. But obviously, we're not necessarily in that position yet. So, and also part of it is we just want to get good at talking and being at the podcast in the first place. But it also brought me
Yeah.
on to the idea that like once you have some capital, once you have a bit of a brand, once you have an audience, I think the idea of just like build it and put it out there and iterate, it's actually maybe like a bit broken. Because I was like thinking with this pod, like the ideal scenario, like say if our list were big or brands were big, like the ideal scenario would be almost to have that finished product as and everything else as high production quality as possible. A bit like David Perel has done. Like I think he launched his podcast And to do it, he like built an entire room for it, like everything pristine, everything perfect. People come and sit down with him, and then he records it in there. And it would be almost to do that, and then so it's almost like giving like a high product to your audience. But then if you don't have that, obviously just build it in Break. But then one thing I'm even thinking with this is like, until we have it to that point and like what we're talking about is nailed and all this sort of thing, you almost it's kind of just getting good rather than getting known. Like don't even really have that much desire to push this podcast that much yet, because I'm not even yet that like confident in its quality. Like I don't look at it, I'm like, oh, this is so clean, or like, oh, the intro's done, or like thumbnail. Like at the moment, it's all a little bit scrap dash. So yeah, that's just something I've been thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, there's levels to it, you know, and we're at the first level, and we know that, and that's why it's not like hugely pushed out, and we're really trying to market this because we know that we're going to get better over time, you know.
And I'm in
I think there's an advantage. What?
And I'm in my mate's sister's bedroom.
Right, like we're gonna get better with time over it, and just being okay with knowing that like we're gonna make mistakes as we're doing it, like that's okay. I think that people can relate more to that than some perfectly done podcast that's, you know, obviously it's probably more entertaining to listen to, but if you're trying to start out like us, like you're gonna make mistakes. That's okay. We're here to show you them. You know, we can make them first for you. It's fine. I don't care.
Yeah. All right, sick. Well, if the pod hasn't already ended, I guess that's a wrap.
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah. 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 Yo, it's time to build leverage, stack up your advantage. Life and business time to manage, never stay stranded. Start with the vision, mission, plan of attack. Keep your eyes on the prize, no looking back.